Good afternoon. You are watching the Heritage Talk. I am your host, Bongeka Ndandani. Heritage is defined differently by different people. One of the simpler ways of defining it is to simply say traditions, cultural beliefs that are passed from one generation to another. Examples of these could be music, religion, our indigenous ceremonies, the foods that we eat. Now, as we celebrate heritage in the year of 2020, we still ask the following questions. Are we still practicing our heritage? Are we still rooted to who we are? Is it even important to celebrate and discuss heritage? What role does music play in our daily practices, which constitute what we call heritage? Now, ndinosis Bongeka up, Miss Ndandani. She's going to tell us all about herself. But she is a spiritual healer and a spiritual counselor. We are not going to hear this from me, we are going to hear it from her. She will clearly tell you exactly who she is and what she does, and then she will help us answer some of these questions. Sis Bongeka, molo sis kunjani?
Hi, Munda, ndiyafila njani?
Hi, siyaphila nathi sis man. It's a very free environment. You can talk English, you can talk isiXhosa. Khawuzazise sis wam.
Okay. Igama nguBongeka Ndandani, born and raised in Butterworth, Eastern Cape, but ke ndikhulele endaweni ezohlukeneyo because kulo mama kusengqamakho. I'm the first born kumama, a second born kutata. Siblings plus minus 4, both sides. 3 kumama, 4 kutata. 40 years old, happily single. I am a spiritual psychologist. I am a mental health advocate. So Munda, one would ask, because that is a constant question I get, Sis Bongeka, what is a spiritual psychologist? Because people are used to clinical psychiatrists, and so how I try and narrow in terms of giving the idea of the space that I operate in. I simply say I'm your body, soul, spirit doctor. So my role is to repair a human psyche, that thing we call sixth sense. I had that thing that said. So now I align the body, which is the host of the soul, so that the spirit has a flow. So my role is to make sure that all these things operate holistically. There's nothing that overlaps the other. They all form a part of one's being, so that we've got a sound and mentally ready, mature human being with morals and values, not just being taught, but that innate thing that comes from you, that this is how I should be handling myself. This is who I am as this person. This is this is what I do. This is what I cannot do, because I've got that self-awareness and self-actualization.
Right. I guess it's Bongi. Thank you very much for that introduction. Now, when we talk about heritage, what is your perspective? Yeah. The floor is now yours. What is your perspective on heritage?
I hope, Munda, I'll be able to teach, because I don't want a scenario where it's just talking and talking and talking and talking, because we've done much talking. Yeah. And now it has gotten to a point where it's crunch time. One of the roles I assumed as a spiritual psychologist was to unpack the early childhood. So when you speak of heritage, one would ask, heritage, so xa ke ngoku uzama ukucacisela umntu intubeko monde, awukwazi uthetha ngentubeko ungakhange uthethe nge-identity. Xa uthethe nge-identity, zikhona izinto ezenza ubuntu bomntu. Undivile mos into yobana nditheni ngugqirha womzimba. That means umzimba unezinto ezenza umzimba. Umzimba ayontloko, umzimba ayonyawo, umzimba ayominwe, umzimba ayongomlomo, but it's the entirety of one's body. So that means each part is important. So now when we come to identity, in terms of unpacking a heritage, we find ourselves singing off key. Why do I say that? We've got behavior, which is a current crisis in our country, which is currently the high rise is gender-based violence. So now, when you speak of heritage, one would ask, what is my heritage? So when you say, what is my heritage, you're actually saying, who am I? So when you approach heritage from the perspective of identity, you then now uyaxananaza ube ngilaa mthi uneengcambu ezixananazileyo, hence sinamathile namathile. Le identity ke ngoku ikwenza ukwazi into yobana uzazi wena. Ingxaki yethu ke ngoku xa sizalwa emakhayeni ethu, wow, it's a baby girl, wow, it's a baby boy. So abazali bethu xa besikhulisa, ingqondo yabo i-channel ubuntu bakho from i-gender perspective. So uzaba ngulo mntana besithi, hayi suka intombazana into yiyo, hayi suka phuma inkwenkwe ambozilwela. So and then laa nto ine-impact which is somehow negative in how we shape, project and model ourselves, because the moment ndizazibona as intombazana and inkwenkwe, ukwenza kwam will be in line with what I'm being labeled as. Mandiphinde mona xa mane ndixelele into yobana ndikhunjuzwa into yobana ndiyintombazana, I'll take that as my identity. So ukwenza kwam will be limited by virtue of being in this box of being a girl. So anything beyond that ndizawuyoyika, and anything that challenges ubuntombi bam ndizawufinisha intimidated. When I'm expected to rise to the occasion, I'll have those things into yobana I've been constantly reminded into yobana ndiyintombazana. So now when we come to heritage, we're trying to regenerate. I grew back in the years, there was immoral regeneration. When we speak of immoral regeneration today, AMA 2000 will not understand. Reason being, akusekho nto enobuntu bethu. Ubuntu bethu have been categorized to into yempahla. Isinxibo, into yobana ndinxibe isintu. Yintoni isintu? Ngubani untu? So, and then ke ngokufumana as dynamics which are influences from ezinye intlanga zifike thina singenayo laa nto sime kuyo sithi bubuntu bethu obu, sime into sime ngayo sisini, which is igender. Sime kwisini thina xa sidefine ubuntu bethu. And yet there are things now on the ground which are forcing us to step out of these boxes, to actually unpack ubuntu bomntu outside. So when we speak of heritage, we need to be cautious of the fact that impahla esizinxibayo is an extension. I-language esiyithethayo is an extension. Ikutya esikutyayo is an extension. How we channel spiritually is an expression, which now leads to an emotional well-being of one's nature. Then ke ngoku apho, you start to think outside the confines of your home. You become sensual, you're sensitive of other people's needs, and then you then get into a space where you connect to who you are as a human being, not as a boy and a girl. So coming back to your question, what is heritage? Heritage, Monde, is the holistic identity of one's being in relation to in nature, be it you are male or female, based on umzi ozalwa kuwo, ifamily ozalwa kuyo, isiduko ozalwa kuso, but ekugqibeleni kuneengcambu ezenza ubuntu bakho. Obu buntu bakho ngokuya ukhula uqandusela into ekufanele kube yiyo. Zezi zinto ke ngoku sithi yi-heritage. But ke ngoku the question would be, do we have a heritage as abantu abamnyama?
That's a very good question.
Do we have a heritage, man?
That's a very, very good question.
So what are we celebrating? Because if you notice in our companies, akusebenza khona kuzawufika, like for instance, I'm in Joburg. Kuna Batswana, kuna vendors, Changans, Zulus, all these classification according to its tribes, they are racial. But we see race when a different color of skin imposes. So what does this mean then? It means Tina sivumile classify according to a certain, like divided into segments. These are going segments ezenza into okubana sicinga uba amaxesha unxiba imibhaco nemibhlaselo nezizinto like your Limpopo outfits and your KZN outfits. So like isiXhosa sidiverse kusimpondo kwisihlubi kwisibhaca kwisintoni. So when you sit down and nomntana ozalwe ngo-2000, you're going to have a problem. Because laa mntana is not approaching life from the perspective of ndingumXhosa. They approach life from the perspective that I am a human being. But we've got a problem again, because we've got this mentality that you are a female first before you become a human being. So then, one question that will stand out from this conversation would be, if you're saying you're celebrating heritage, what is heritage to you? In terms of you as an individual. Because as Bongeka, I'll have my classification based on upon this corner. But again, with life, I had to come out and explore life beyond what has been provided for me, which now impacted on how I conduct myself and how I deliver myself to the world.
So, Sis Bongi, drawing from everything that you've said so far, it's pretty clear that you are one of the people who believe firmly so that heritage is still very much a part of who we are, and it's something that we should not forget about.
Oh, yes. And Munda, the sad part is that in us trying to fit in these boxes, it became easy for other nationalities to capture us. I'll take clicks ad. For just me example, the most recent, the clicks ad, if you are spiritual matured and psychological matured, you will see it as a call. The reason why that ad rubbed us the wrong way is because it told us the truth that we failed to confront and we don't want to confront. One of the things that I said about that ad, Muda, was that I was expecting a call to ban weaves. Instead, we saw afros being flashed in our social medias. But there was never a tweet that said, let's ban the weave and embrace our natural hair. That is being double agenda. So now, let's come back to the essence. You see, I spoke of the body. Like, I shaved my locks. I had locks. But when I was entering my 40th phase, I felt like cleansing. So that means I had to shave. So to shave is to shed. So when you shed, you're renewing. So now, the reason why the hair issue rubs us the wrong way is because it's one of those legal things we somehow associate with ourselves, yet in denial. So the shampoo ad forced us to embrace who we are, not the hair. But people ran along and took it from a hair perspective. The hair is not an independent part of the body. It is a holistic part of the body. What does our hair mean? I'll make an example of Samson. Samson was born a Nazarite. So, ozelwe nesasiphiwo ngokwaSirayeli unendlela akhuliswa ngayo. So Samson's hair kuhlangana kokwabo was a national treasure. Samson's hair kuhlangana kokwabo was a national heritage. That is why namhlanje sisathetha ngoSamson. Because there was something that God hid in Samson's hair until it became public knowledge. So Tina, when we fight and try to make our voices heard, my fear more is that it's from a place of not knowing exactly what we're fighting for. So when we speak of heritage, we'll have to constantly ask ourselves, exactly, what is heritage to us? Who are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? Because before you can celebrate heritage, you need to acknowledge who you are. And in your acknowledging who you are, you'll identify the influencing factors which impact in you becoming who you're supposed to be. So when we have divided ourselves into these segments, Zulus, Xhosas, Tswanas, Indians, all these things, all these racial norms, which have been imposed onto us, we then cling into clothing. We allow, if you go to the shops, the amount because people are going to buy. The amount of traditional outfits. Why can't it be traditional? Why can't it be a lifestyle? Why do I have to be triggered by an ad from clicks for me to embrace my natural hair? Why am I triggered? The reason why, Munda, I'm triggered, it's because I haven't fully accepted who I am. I haven't seen God through me. I haven't seen the works of God through the color of my skin. So the moment I embrace Bongeka in totality, despite of how she was conceived or where she was raised and who raised her, bottom line is, as a human being, I have finally got into a space where I embrace who I am, and that is my heritage.
Yes, yes. No, Sis Bongeka, and I'm pretty sure that all the people that are watching or will watch at a later stage are going to gain a lot from this conversation. Sis Bongeka, we are living in the time of several pandemics, COVID-19 being only one of them. But seemingly we've seen a rather strong pandemic by the name of gender-based violence and femicide. Now, when we talk of heritage, and you've just said we need to remember who we are, clearly such behavior is not in our DNA, or at least was not pre-designed to be in our DNA. So can you share a perspective on that as well?
Munda, when you don't know who you are, you're bound to inherit certain behavioral traits. They start as habitual in a form of survival. Like I was addressing the very thing this morning on Twitter, that our early childhood development has done a lot of damage. Adults will be in denial of how things have turned. But in our families, we have patterns and cycles which have contributed fully. Because when you label me as a female or a male, you restrict me. And in you restricting me, you put boundaries. And in these boundaries, there's the Spirit of God. Because the breath cannot be confined into a structure. So that means when we enter into these relationships, we come as emotional cripples. And then we embark on this journey trying to fit that void which was left. Or, yes, some parents were there, both parents, but they were physically present. Some, umama, what is I'm pregnant, so you are raised in this single-parented household, but that is not an excuse. Because I've heard people saying, umntana or a single parent is always troublesome. There's no such thing, Monde. I always say to people, our society has created a norm where we adopted things that are foreign. We never had a Mother's Day. We never had a Father's Day. Just imagine when you go to school on a Mother's Day and you don't even know who your mother is. What does that do to you? It's a Father's Day. You go to school, kids are writing poems, are doing things for their fathers, and you don't have a father. You don't even have that uncle whom you refer to as a father or a father figure in your environment. And then you grow with this resentment of this over this person. You are not even aware of his or her absence, but the society has adopted things, which is, it goes back to what I'm saying, that Munda, when you speak of heritage, let's go back and ask ourselves, what is heritage? Because in us adopting Western things, we ended up hindering. The reason why today, that we shared, because when we connected, sometimes we are connected by our traumas. So our traumas will make us connect. And in that duration, for as long as we feed off each other, the environment will be okay. But come a time where now, as Bongeka, I'm trying to be my woman, my own woman. But Umande is still hanging into that Bongeka meet as a trauma. Bongeka is working on developing herself and is advancing career, and she's exploring life. Umande is still stuck on being the taxi driver or being the teacher. And then in that space, there's a conflict because your interest and my interest are going to clash. And in gender-based violence, Munda, one of the things I constantly say in my talks is that let's go back. We never had something called gender-based violence. We had domestic violence. And then it was politicized, hijacked, and taken to the streets. So now that it's on the streets, the narrative changed. Because when we say gender-based, we're simply saying males in this regard are fighting females, or females are fighting males. So when you speak of gender-based, let's be sensitive, because in us trying to unpack certain things and remodel and address certain behavioral traits, we end up stepping on each other's toes, because we see gender-based violence as men attacking women. We forget that in this space, there are two. I'll go to domestic violence. I'm not going to talk about a stranger that means a strange woman and rape. I'll talk about you and me in a relationship. We're in this house, we had this whole life that we thought is our life, like the example that I've just made. That now that I've grown, instead of realizing that for a time we were compatible, but the space, one of us has outgrown the space. And then instead of you acknowledging the growth and releasing me, you then want to confine me in that space. And the energy that is going to happen in that space is not going to be pure, because one is forced. It's like you sacrificing your time and coming to me. When you come to me without that thing that says to you, I'm looking forward to see Bongeka, whatever that is going to happen in that environment, it's going to be a bottom, because you are forcing yourself. So when you force, you suppress. When you suppress, you irritate. When you irritate, you trigger. I know that is too much English. So now, when we talk of gender-based, we have to go back to the very same children, the boy child and the girl child. The mindset, how are we conditioned? Bullying happens in our families. And our parents normalize bullying us because we are children. And what they don't understand is the impact. You then move into this relationship, which will fit that particular thing which was missing from your childhood. And in you trying to feed off, you forget that I also have my own wounds and scars. So when the growth now happens outside, one of us is going to be triggered, because you feel the abandonment, you feel the rejection, you feel the loss, you feel the neglect, and then you want to keep. And then people beat. Even starts with shouting, and then I allow it. Because somewhere, somehow, I feel guilty that Monde delayed his life because of me. So by me allowing you, Monde, I'm not helping you. Then, when you shout me first time, I must cut you right there. I must stop it by addressing it in a sensible manner that we are both mature adults. There is a way of how you would have handled this. I don't take kindly to being shouted. What's happening now, you're trying to create a space where our emotions are permitted. You are okay to express yourself, but the manner in which you're expressing yourself mustn't demean me. You came home late. I said this dinner will be ready at 8. When you come through the door, instead of waiting for you to tell me why are you home at 9 instead of 8, I just gone at you because you're missing, triggered something which was done by who? Most likely my father, who used to promise to come. So those are the things that I deal with in my counseling sessions, where we unpack, where people are obsessed with time. Yeah. And you find that the obsession with time has got to do with, it was a defense mechanism they somehow developed. So the gender-based violence perspective is bigger than what the government and the NGOs are unpacking it from. So from the psychological perspective, let's go back to early childhood. In us unpacking early childhood, we then deal with individuals. Why do we sit in a relationship that is abusive? Why do we abuse?
No, siyabulela ke siswam for that. Ixesha lethu selixhathwe yinja ngesixhosa. In other words, we're almost going to run out of time. But before I let this lovely lady go, there is something that a lot of people do not know about her. She was in the managing structure of one of the best choirs in the Western Cape, in the chorus, as it were. So she's got a very strong musical background. So Sisbongi, since we are talking about heritage, kule mizuzu imbalwa ayishiyekileyo, can you just kindly share your perspective on the role that is played by music in heritage, or the importance of it?
When I refer to music, I refer it as part of my calling, because for me to be a spiritual psychologist, I didn't go to university. It's a calling. As Umama Mhlaoli was explaining her calling as igqirha. So, mina ndiligqirha likamoya, in the sense that music is part, but thina, unfortunately, again, due to being lost, we adopted behaviors. We think music is in your jiva. Music is another form of worship. Music have got stages. That is why we've got a tune. That is why we've got a chant. So all those things work with our senses, so to tap outside consciousness. So when we approach music from a perspective of it being a gift, I want to quickly read something Munda, which I love, where David, and then David is talking about how they were asked to sing. And in them singing, he felt undermined because the music that the captors were asking were music that they sing when in their sacred spaces. So that is why that is why that is why so there's an emotional and a spiritual component which helps us to tap into who we are. So by tapping in that level of us, it then harnesses the animal nature. So in harnessing the animal nature, you then get to face the person you are. But now when you are disconnected, not knowing who you are, music will just play and then you just, and then that's it. You go to a choir, you don't have a constructive contribution because you don't know why you are singing. You know what I did at your choir when I first visited you?
Oh, yes.
I simply spoke to the choir. I said, you sing so beautifully. But now, unfortunately, just from the stomach too, now I need you to go down. I need you to go deep. Go to that space. Your place of vulnerability, your place of anger, if it's anger, but that place where you know that you're gonna connect. You remember how we won the Western Peace called Mushwal Kulanyaka. I said to them, 10 choirs will be performing the same song. You need to stand out. And how you're gonna stand out? You will sing with emotions, and then the audience feels. You cannot be the one feeling. You must express emotions so that the person who is listening to you feels what you are going through. So that is the level we need to tap into when it comes to music, so that we can regenerate and bring ourselves back to ourselves and our families. Our nation is a disarray. People have lost imisebenzi. They are going through a lot. Imitshato is on the rocks. Abantwana, they're fighting with parents. There's a lot that is happening in Munda. So we need to go back to our core. Who are we? And then speak heritage.
Wow. Hi, siyabulela kakhulu. You have given us a lot to think about. This conversation was a serious eye-opener. Niyazivela ke bandakwethu usis Bongeka is reminding us that when we talk of heritage, it is not a simple concept that we just get to celebrate, but rather one which should in fact challenge us to excavate and find out in Okobana, when we talk of heritage, what are we talking about? For us as individuals, what is the importance thereof? So in order for us to successfully begin to talk about heritage, it's important to know what it is and who we are. So Sis Bongeka, you have taught us a lot. Siyabulela kakhulu. Do you have any last messages? We've got about 3 minutes. Any last message for our listeners?
I know people would be interested to know where to find me, Munda. On Twitter, it's capital letter B, Bongi N, Bongi Ono IE at Bongi N on Twitter. On Facebook, it's Bongi with no I, Nana Ndandani. In number yam, it's 082-351-1190. If you want to email, bndandani177@gmail.com. I'm available for counseling, early childhood trauma, depression, stress, anxiety, marriage counseling, grief counseling, and rape counseling. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you very much. The pleasure was all ours. We were humbled and honored to have you here. That was the Heritage Talk with me as your host, Mondem Tengi. I was joined today by Sis Bongeka. Thank you very much to Sis Bongeka, and thank you for your time in watching this video. We certainly hope that it will mean something to you and that you will take the gift that was shared with you by Sis Bongeka. Thank you very much. Till next time.